There is a kind of tiredness that is difficult to name. It's not just physical and not exactly emotional either. It's deeper, like a silent erosion that happens beneath the surface. You carry it in the way you sigh without realizing it, in how your shoulders tense for no reason, in that invisible pressure to always seem serene, pleasant, kind. Somewhere along the way you were taught, maybe not in words, but through the reactions of others, that being good meant being selfless, that putting others first was noble, that if you were fair, patient, and generous, the world would eventually repay you in kind. So you tried, again and again. But then came the subtle betrayals, the moments you showed understanding and were mistaken for weak, the times you offered help before it was asked and were met with entitlement, the countless situations where you swallowed your own needs, your own voice, just to avoid conflict, just to be liked, just to keep the peace. And now you're tired, not just from doing too much, but from being too little of yourself. Ask yourself honestly, how many times have you silenced your truth to avoid being a burden? How often have you shrunk yourself to make space for others who never even noticed? How many times have you said it's okay when it wasn't, just to be seen as kind, only to be overlooked entirely? Here's the uncomfortable truth. The world doesn't necessarily reward those who are nice. It rewards those who are clear about their boundaries, clear about their worth, clear about what they will and will not tolerate. Being a good person doesn't mean abandoning yourself. It doesn't mean making yourself small so others can feel big. It doesn't mean saying yes when everything inside you is screaming no. So what if you stopped living to please everyone? What if you allowed yourself to be fully seen, even when that means not being liked by all? What if the version of you that's been buried under all that politeness finally stood up and said, enough? This isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming honest, with yourself first and then with the world. Because real peace doesn't come from keeping everyone happy. It comes from finally being true to who you are. Maybe that's where your freedom begins. And that's where Machiavelli comes in. Machiavelli was not the devil that many say. He was perhaps the first to tell the naked truth about how power works. He understood something that most people refuse to accept, that pure morality detached from reality is a trap, that being seen as good is not the same as being effective, fair, or worthy. In this video, we are going to talk without filters, without masks, about why you need to stop trying to be a good person. And no, that doesn't mean becoming someone cruel or cold. It means waking up, awakening from the childish dream that the world is fair and that it's enough to be virtuous to be rewarded. We will expose the truth no matter how uncomfortable it may be. As long as you are trying to please everyone, you will be in their hands, a hostage of your own kindness. And if you're already tired of being used, ignored, discarded, maybe it's time to change, to learn from Machiavelli what they never taught you, and finally take control of your life. Ready? Then let's get started. Do you still believe that the world values good people? Look around you. Who are the most admired? Who holds leadership positions? Who earns respect, influence, space? Are they the most generous, the most compassionate, the most just? Or are they the most strategic, the most assertive, the hardest to manipulate? The truth is brutal. The world is not governed by kindness, but by utility. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He didn't write The Prince to teach how to be malicious. He wrote to show how the game's played. And one of the bitterest lessons he gives us is this: being good is not enough. In many cases, being good is the quickest way to be discarded. You can spend your life being loyal, kind, and understanding. You can give your best, help others without expecting anything in return. But the day you are no longer useful, you will be forgotten, replaced, silenced, and the worst part, without a shred of guilt from the other side. Because the world does not measure your worth by your morality. It measures by what you deliver, by the influence you have, by the impact you make. Have you noticed that the nice guys are always chasing after, always justifying, explaining themselves, trying to prove they are deserving? Meanwhile, those who set boundaries, who say no, who present themselves clearly, they are respected, they have a voice, they have space. And why? Because blind kindness is seen as weakness. Because those who never confront, never threaten, and those who do not threaten are not taken seriously. They are seen as a resource, not as a presence, as a tool, not as an individual. You can kill yourself trying to please, but if you do not represent power or consequence, no one will hesitate to use you. It's harsh, I know, but it's the reality. Machiavelli said that a leader should not seek to be loved, but to be feared if forced to choose between the two. And what did he mean by that? That true respect arises from the perception that you are someone with the power to act, that you cannot be trampled without reaction, that you're not a replaceable piece in someone else's game. And this applies to you too. If you continue living to be pleasant, you will continue to be seen as someone easy to discard. Not because you are a bad person, but because the world does not reward those who fade away. It's time to understand where this unhealthy desire to be accepted all the time comes from. Because behind your kindness, there is something deeper, something that may have been sabotaging you for years. And that is exactly what we will explore now. In the next part, we will dive into the psychological roots of those who live trying to please and discover why often being nice is just a disguised form of fear. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. You weren't born wanting to please everyone. That was taught to you. And worse, it was conditioned. Since childhood, you learned that being accepted came at a price, giving up parts of yourself, forced smiles, swallowed desires, silenced opinions, all in the name of approval. From "don't do that, it's ugly," to "be nice," to "don't respond," to "you're so polite." And so, little by little, you molded yourself to fit what others expected. But what no one told you is that pleasing all the time is an emotional trap, a psychological prison built with poisoned compliments and punishments disguised as education. You learned that if you pleased others, you would be loved, and that if you showed anger, set boundaries, or were selfish, you would be rejected. So you did what any mind would do to survive. You adapted. The problem is that this adaptation turned into submission. Today, you no longer know how to say no without feeling guilty. You feel responsible for the well-being of others, even if it destroys you inside. You get frustrated, but keep it to yourself. You get disappointed, but forgive too quickly. You exhaust yourself trying to maintain an image that others expect, not because it is your essence, but because it is what you learned gave you security. But here's a reality check. This is not kindness. This is fear. Fear of being rejected. Fear of not being loved. Fear of being seen as a bad person. Fear of being who you really are, with desires, with anger, with boundaries, with a voice. And this fear has turned you into someone who sabotages themselves, someone who hides behind socially accepted but emotionally destructive behavior. And the most tragic part, you don't even realize you're doing this. You call it empathy, but it's fear of confrontation. You call it understanding, but it's fear of abandonment. You call it kindness, but it's fear of not being enough. Your kindness is, in fact, a mask, an unconscious strategy to avoid the pain of rejection. But this mask has a very high cost. It suffocates your authenticity, your power, and your dignity. And if you don't take off this mask, it will stick to your skin. It will become your identity. And one day, you will look in the mirror and no longer know who you truly are. But there is a way back. And to find it, we need to learn from someone who understood the power of image, perception, and strategy like no one else, Machiavelli. In the next part, we will get straight to the point. What the prince can teach us about how to stop being a hostage to our need to appear good and start being respected for who we really are. If you're trying to live as a good person, hoping that others will recognize your morality, your ethics, and your integrity, stop now. Machiavelli warned over 500 years ago, "This path is beautiful but dangerous. In the real world, it is not the good who win, it is the effective who win." And effectiveness in the game of life requires strategy. It requires understanding that people do not act motivated by your goodness. They act driven by interest, fear, and power. In The Prince, Machiavelli writes, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, but few feel what you really are." This sentence is a punch. It unmasks the illusion that being true, pure, and authentic is enough to earn respect. The reality is harsh. People do not see your intention. They react to your appearance, your image, your impact. You may be the most just person in the world, but if you seem weak, you will be treated as weak. You may have the most generous heart, but if you do not inspire respect, you will be ignored. And that is why the prince, and here, the prince is you. Anyone who wants to take control of their own life cannot be naive. He must appear virtuous when it is convenient and be strategic when it is necessary. Machiavelli says the prince must know how to use the nature of the animal well. He must be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to terrify wolves. This is a brutally true metaphor. The fox is cunning, sees hidden dangers, knows how to move silently. The lion, on the other hand, imposes fear, strength, presence. Machiavelli does not say to be just one or the other. He says, be both. Be wise enough to perceive who is manipulating you and strong enough to make others think twice before trying. Do you want to be respected? Then understand, the virtue that Machiavelli recommends is not the one preached by moralists. It is virtù, a mix of courage, intelligence, audacity, and self-control. It is to act with coldness when necessary. It is to know that sometimes appearing cruel is the only way to maintain order, not out of malice, but out of wisdom. Here's another quote from him. "A man who wishes to act in all circumstances like a good man is doomed to ruin among so many who are not good." And you know this? You have been that man. You have tried to be good in every situation. And what did you gain? Abuse, silence, injustice. People do not play fair. And if you continue to play as if they do, you will always lose. This does not mean abandoning your values. It means stopping using them as shackles. It means starting to act with power. To think about how your goodness is being perceived and used by others. Machiavelli was not cynical. He was realistic. He saw humanity without romanticism, without veils. And he wrote The Prince as a manual for surviving in a world where appearance is power and weakness disguised as virtue is a death sentence. But perhaps now you are wondering, is there any way to balance this? How can I stop being naive without becoming a cold or evil person? In the next part, we will break the false idea that you only have two choices, to be nice or to be cruel. There is a middle path, and it begins with the strength to stop deceiving yourself. There is a fatal confusion that destroys the lives of many people. The idea that to be good, one must be submissive. That to be a good person, it is necessary to accept everything in silence, forgive everything without questioning, and live swallowing what bothers you to maintain peace. This is not kindness. This is naivety. It is cowardice disguised as virtue. And if you do not understand this difference, you will continue to be the emotional doormat of the world. True kindness does not require you to nullify yourself. It requires awareness, clarity, choice. Being good does not mean being a cheerful fool who is always available, always smiling, always sacrificing for those who wouldn't lift a finger for you. This is self-abandonment. It is emotional dependency disguised as morality. Naivety believes that people will treat you with the same heart that you have. Naivety believes that the world is fair and that if you are integral, others will recognize that. Naivety expects gratitude, reciprocity, consideration, and it lives frustrated. It lives disappointed because it is projecting onto others a nobility that does not exist. True kindness is different. It is firm. It knows how to say no. It knows how to walk away. It understands that not everyone deserves your best, and that giving your best to those who have nothing to offer in return is waste, not generosity. You can be a just, compassionate, and integral person and still be feared. Be respected. Be someone who commands presence, who knows what they tolerate and what they do not accept. Machiavelli, despite seeming cruel to modern eyes, did not hate virtue. He hated naivety. He knew that in a world full of predators, kindness without strength is just fresh meat in the middle of the jungle. The question you need to ask yourself now is your kindness protecting you or exposing you? Is it strengthening you or destroying you? Because if your idea of being good involves living by swallowing injustices, accepting crumbs, and blaming yourself for feeling anger, then you are not being good. You're being dominated. And there is an antidote to this. There is a balance point where you do not have to give up your essence, but you also do not have to kneel before anyone. A place where you can act with courage, clarity, and emotional intelligence. In the next part, we will explore this path. We will talk about how to stop being nice without becoming a scoundrel and finally take control of your life without betraying yourself. So now you know, the world doesn't reward your silence, your submission, or your unshakable desire to please. It rewards presence, strategy, clarity, boundaries, not because these things make you less kind, but because they make you real. Being good is not the problem. Being invisible is. For too long, you've let yourself be molded by what others expect, by what society praises on the surface, but exploits in secret. You've believed that virtue meant silence, that empathy meant erasing yourself, that love had to be earned through sacrifice. But the truth is, real love, real respect, real power, they begin when you stop abandoning yourself. This isn't about becoming cruel. It's not about domination. It's about transformation. It's about learning how to stand in your own authority, to embody your values without being a victim of them, to speak with kindness, but never with fear, to look in the mirror and finally recognize the strength behind your softness, the fire behind your forgiveness, the power in your presence. Machiavelli didn't teach us to be evil. He taught us to wake up. He showed us that image matters, that people follow confidence, not compliance, that in a world where appearances shape perception, you have to be both the lion and the fox, wise enough to spot the trap, strong enough to be the reason it never closes. So ask yourself now, truly, are you living your life or surviving it? Are you speaking your truth or swallowing it? Are you being respected or just tolerated? Because here's the hardest truth of all. If you don't define who you are, the world will do it for you, and it will never do it kindly. It's time to reclaim your voice, to rebuild your boundaries, to understand that real goodness, powerful goodness, has nothing to do with being passive and everything to do with being conscious. So walk forward, not as someone trying to be liked, but as someone who finally knows they are enough, with or without anyone's approval. Thank you for being here. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe and join this space where we speak truths that set us free. Share this with someone who needs to remember their strength. Until next time, be kind but never small. Be good but never silent. And above all, be real